We never know when these blows from life will come. My nervous system went all the way out to being attacked by the tiger in the jungle. I have my survival guide, so why not share it with others who may also need it when shit really hits the fan for them too. Isn't it easier to just drink your sorrows away? Welcome to today's episode, and this week we are going to talk about creating your own survival guide when shit really hits the fan. Yep, we are in it, people. I am currently not feeling at my best whatsoever. I actually feel, whether it's a cold or a virus or whatever coming on, which is saying a lot considering I generally hold a really high immune system. And there's a reason behind this. You see, energetically speaking, there's quite a lot going on right now. It was a full moon in Pisces earlier this week, and also a full solar eclipse season. So quite a lot going on. For those of you who aren't as familiar with astrology, eclipses are often when quite a bit comes up and shakes you up, either to let go or to kind of show shadows reveal themselves. Things come up to be worked through, basically. And oh dear, did it do that for me this week. And it's also springtime, so it's a time of new beginnings. It's a time of reawakening from the slumber of winter, and that in itself can often be quite just a lot, because you're kind of cricking and cracking, and imagine that I just have this visual of this mama bear coming out of the hibernation and just starting to remember what it's like to be out there again, and that's kind of the energy right now. So look, this week has, I'm not gonna lie, been really intense. I was thrown off center. And as I was reflecting on this week, I was like, you know what? I knew what to do. I knew how to come back to myself. I knew how to recenter myself pretty quickly. Many people don't. And so in the heat of the moment, while I'm still in the middle of this, you can probably hear it in my voice. It's a bit nasally, it's a little bit congested, but I was like, you know what? I have my survival guide, so why not share it with others who may also need it when shit really hits the fan for them too. Let's dive in. Welcome to Resonance, a podcast for ambitious, heart-led humans craving more balance, depth, and aliveness in their lives. I'm your host, Vic, health coach, yoga teacher, facilitator, and fellow high achiever, learning to live in tune with my nervous system, not against it. And this space is here to remind you that you can have it all. The career, the success, the fulfillment, all aligned with your truth. Through honest conversations, expert insights, and practical tools, we'll explore how to work with your body, mind, emotions, and spirit, not against them. And the best part? You don't have to stay stuck in survival mode to get there. Because true well-being is not about being perfect. It's about being in resonance. Let's dive in. All right, so a little bit of context and setup to what was going on this week. I mentioned I was really thrown off center by a situation that really threatened my nervous system. My nervous system went all the way out to being attacked by the tiger in the jungle. Completely dysregulated. I was in full sympathetic response, your fight, flight, freeze response, to the max. And it took me so by surprise, obviously the situation that triggered this, but also the fact that I responded the way that I did, because I actually haven't had such a fully blown out sympathetic nervous system response for a really long time, actually since 2021. We'll come back to why that is later on. And imagine all the symptoms. So we're talking insomnia, we're talking heightened anxiety. Again, I think panic attacks are really unique and individual, but it was to the point where like my hands were shaking and my hands were clammy in the mornings leaving the home. Like, it was pretty intense. Impaired appetite, like again, me in the past, I would have just skipped my meals, but like I had to force myself to eat, but I was not hungry whatsoever. We're talking psychosomatic symptoms, so like pains in my stomach and like joints and weird areas of my body. And how's this? My cycle even shifted by a whole week. Like, that's insane. I have not had that happen in the almost 2 years since I've come off hormonal contraception. So obviously here's like a real life, real time example of how stress, intensely survival based perceived stress, can manifest in the body. And while I am still in the middle of it, as you can see, like my body is about to shut down to reset and integrate, despite, by the way, just having had a really blissful holiday, I am bouncing back so much quicker than I would have if I hadn't had this survival guide, these tools and mechanisms and, practices to bring me back to center. And that's why, like, I'm bouncing back much quicker because I have my survival toolkit. And I will walk you step by step through what I have done so you can create yours based off of this real-time, real-life experience. So I want to preface, first things first, is that we never know when these blows from life will come. Like, as much as we would like to pretend that we have everything under control, we don't. We never know what's going to happen. And therefore, I just wanted to preface this with the fact that you just got to be ready anytime. And it doesn't mean that we're like, doomsday preppers or anything, in no way, shape, or form. It just means that this whole time that you take care of yourself in your day to day and you regulate your nervous system, what that does is it prepares you for these times when, the sparkles hit the fan. And it's also really good to have these practices and these habits already ingrained ahead of time, so that then when you are in it, when you're deep in the mud, when you're wallowing through it, it's normal, it's natural, where to come back to, because it's already like either part of your routine or it's familiar and it feels safe. And this is where I want to start. Safety, safety, safety. Number one, always and forever, whenever you get thrown off kilter, establish safety in your nervous system. Because if your nervous system is feeling a threat to survival, if you don't feel safe, you can try and do whatever you want, whatever mantras and self-talk and mindset, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to work if you feel unsafe. So really, everything I'm going to share, most of what I'm going to share today, is actually taking you back to safety. And the reason behind that is because our ego, which is that monkey brain that I've spoken about on this podcast before, and I'll make sure to link up the episode for those of you who haven't listened to it yet, is like wired for survival, right? So the role of our ego, the role of our monkey mind, is to protect us, is to make sure that we stay safe and alive and well at all times. And so as soon as our nervous system perceives a threat to our safety, no matter how rational or irrational that may be, right? It shuts everything down. It prioritizes everything to keep you safe. And it's no design fault, like the ego just wants to protect us. It wants to make sure that we can survive so we can procreate and create the next generation so that the species survives. So, this safety mechanism is also a big reason for why we exist in this day. And so I think, so often we tend to demonize the ego, but in reality, it's actually our friend. And so it's like, how can we work with it and help it when the going gets tough? And so, yeah, whenever there's kind of this perception of fear, of threat, come back to safety. And let me tell you something here, because a lot of the things that I'm going to say, you're going to perhaps think, oh, I already do this, or no way. Like, why would I do it? Like there's, because the ego just does it. Like even now you might not have known it, but as you've been listening to my voice, you are thinking and analyzing and judging whatever I'm saying, whether it's in agreement with or in disagreement with what you already know. But I would invite you to just approach this with an open mind, and blank slate, blank page, new book, and just see how it resonates. Because I now have had the privilege of a really similar experience in two very different states of my life. So the last time this happened, as I mentioned, I was still in my pre-healing era. And so my coping mechanisms would have been all related to numbing. So whether it is binge drinking, binge eating, binging Netflix, vaping, all the binge things that take me out of the body, take me out of the experience. And it was funny because like even my partner, who isn't in this like health and wellness space, we were joking about it, that he was like, oh, like, look, wasn't it easier to just like drink your sorrows away? And it's like, well, like, yes, it's perceived as easier in the moment because you don't have to deal with whatever is arising. And at the same time, it's not sustainable. Like obviously that was then like, a really ingrained memory and experience. And it's probably actually part of the reason why this week I also was thrown off balance so much, because there was some unprocessed emotion that came up from a few years ago that now felt safe enough to process. So this path of like conscious living is for the brave ones, my friends. So like if you are still listening, you are one of the brave ones, and I applaud you. I value you. I respect you. I see you. And it's pretty awesome to know that you're here. So let's get into the little step-by-step survival guide that worked for me and hopefully will work for you. First things first, feel. I know it might seem so simple and obvious, and yet so many of us have resistance to this. Feel the feeling. Feel the rage. Feel the sorrow. Feel the grief. Feel whatever's coming up, right? Just give yourself unconditional permission to feel. Yeah. I think that was a big difference between this experience and kind of what happened a few years ago, is the visceral, like, my gosh, like just the rage and the blood. It felt like my blood was on fire. And I'm going to tell you something, that sensation, that level of feeling, yes, while it's scary and it's really big and like a lot to hold in that moment, and it's not necessarily comfortable, man, is that a sign of being alive? Because we as human beings are here to feel. Like there is no other kind of being that has such a wide spectrum of emotions as we do. It's incredible. So let yourself feel the feelings, even if it's messy, even if it's uncomfortable. And number 2, right away, verbalize. Verbalize what's coming up for you with no judgment, no filter, no shame, no blame, no nothing. Just let it out, because chances are when like sparkles really hit the fan, and I'm using the word sparkles because I don't want to swear too much in this episode, because I don't want to have to flag it as explicit. So sparkles, we know what it means, right? When sparkles really hit the fan, yes, it will trigger like you as your adult self. And also, it's really likely that it's going to trigger other parts of you, like your inner child or your teenage self, or some other kind of parts of you that maybe have some unprocessed wounds and emotions and memories that are coming up to the surface. And those parts of you really demand and want and need to be heard. So verbalize. And there are so many different ways to do that. Like you could just purge, and there's a voice note that you could do. So you could literally just like record a voice note and be like, okay, this is a purge. And then just for 2 minutes nonstop, just let it out. Just bleh, like word vomit, whatever's coming up, and just keep going. Just don't stop talking. Just keep going. You'd be surprised at like how healing that can be. And actually, I will also link up in this video a little audio that I recorded recently that is me holding space for you to have the purge. So like throughout the audio, you'll hear me like affirm what you said and encourage you to go deeper and be like, okay, what else? This is actually something that I learned from my meditation and manifestation teacher, Emily Fletcher. And it worked so well for me that I just really, really felt called to pass that down to you. So that's a really cool tip in terms of verbalizing it. Otherwise, it could also be journaling, venting. If you've got someone safe that won't judge you to do that with, awesome. We'll get to that in just a moment as well. But yeah, just verbalizing whatever's coming up. Then number 3, and this is so important, like I cannot stress enough how important it is to move, because as soon as you enter that sympathetic nervous system state, adrenaline goes through the roof, cortisol goes through the roof, your heart rate increases, your digestive organs, basically all the organs below the diaphragm, get shut down, and all of your energy, all of your life force goes into your heart and lungs and brain. Like you're basically the essential organs for survival. Because what did we do when we not we, but our ancestors do when they were being chased by a tiger? They needed to run as quickly as they could to get out of there. And what 3 organs do you need to get out of there as quickly as possible? Is your lungs, your heart, and your brain. So move. I went for the longest run I had gone on in a really, really long time. And even then, that still wasn't quite enough. Like after that, if you can, shake, move, dance, whatever. Just like, if it feels safe for you, like just close your eyes and tune into your body and move it in a way that feels good. If you need to turn on a sorrow playlist, turn that on. If you need to turn on a rage playlist, turn it on. If you need a playlist, let me know. I will send them. I don't have a Spotify account set up at the moment, but I'm playing with the idea. So if that's something you would like, let me know, because I have like oodles and oodles of music. Music is my love language. So I do personally have specific playlists to listen to when I need to process specific emotions. But I'm sure that you've got like certain songs that are let something arise in you. And yeah, that's something that I did as well, as I did my little emotional alchemy dance. And then rest. That's number 4. Just rest, whether that's in the form of just doing nothing, sitting on the couch, sleeping, laying around in bed, rolling around on the floor. If you meditate, that's what I did. Just any kind of rest, because after you've kind of moved all that energy and you've let a lot of that out, there comes a time that you then need to go inward and nurture. And I think now that I actually have the memory come back to me, I went for the run, then did my little like rage dance that then turned into sorrow dance, because often our emotions are multifaceted. It's not just one thing coming up. There's multiple things coming up. So as I kind of allowed myself to be with what is, I found that as my nervous system started to downregulate, there was a need to nurture, like, and really go inward. And I remember laying on my yoga mat in a fetal position, tucked in my blanket, and just listening to soothing music. So that's another example of rest. And I meditated afterwards. So there you go. So steps 1 through to 4. And then from here, these aren't necessarily linear. These are just kind of additional things that came up after the fact. So I would just say, like, in terms of your immediate survival guide, that would be probably my top 4 is feel the feelings, verbalize in a safe way, move or shake, and rest or sleep. Like that's probably, I would say, like what worked for me in terms of immediately closing that stress loop. However, obviously it was quite a big event, and therefore it required more support and more integration. So here are some other things that really worked for me that you can add into your survival guide if they resonate. One was co-regulation. What is co-regulation? It is when we regulate our nervous system by association, by being around someone. So whether it's with community, like with like-minded, safe people who you know will hear you and won't judge you and will reflect back exactly what you need to hear, or even pets, like I was definitely giving Piper lots of pats. She's a very energetically attuned dog. So she was doing a beautiful kind of job of co-regulating with me. That's number 5. Number 6 might seem so silly, but trust me, to your nervous system and to this primal instinctual side of you, it's actually really important. Just staying warm, soft, fuzzy, cuddly, snuggly, think cozy, cozy, cozy blankets. I've got like this really soft jumper on, or I also have like this really, really soft bathrobe that just every time I touch it, it soothes me, right? Like think just like your dog might need a calming blanket, like so do you, just warm, soft, and cozy, warm, soft, and cozy. Think that. Number 7, support. Ask for help. So this week, as I was, far from my best, a lot of the routines just went completely out the window. And because I had previously verbalized and co-regulated with my partner, was able to also ask for help and support, and he completely understood, right? So even though I'm normally the one to walk Piper in the morning, most mornings, I think I walked her once this whole week. And things like dinner, just like really basic life stuff, you know what? It actually felt so nice to be able to lay in bed and be cozy for a little bit longer and just ask for help, and whatever that means for you. But yes, support, ask for help is a really important one. Number 8 is boundaries. That is so, so important. Know who your safe people are, just because you are on this path of healing and integrating doesn't mean that you need to wear your heart on a sleeve. Even if you have reservations, like you don't owe anyone an explanation. Like in this experience that I'm sharing, I actually felt quite backstabbed by a certain person, and I just put up a wall. Yes, is that a defense and processing mechanism? Absolutely. And at the same time, that boundary is exactly what I needed in that moment. So yeah, just know how to differentiate between who your safe people are, and when those people ask you how you're going, the simple colloquial "I'm fine" will do. So when the not safe people ask you that, versus when the safe people ask you, you can obviously have the honest, real, and raw conversation. And safety can be perceived in different ways, right? Like in terms of safe people, like obviously trust is really important, but also I would say safety in terms of having the capacity to hold space for you and be there for you in an emotionally supportive way. So this is a really great example of it, actually, because obviously this was like quite a, this isn't just a one-day experience. It was spanned across the week. And I recall vividly, I think it was the first day or one of the days, anyway, it doesn't matter, where I was obviously still super dysregulated and going through my process. And then all of a sudden my partner got upset at something as well. And obviously like he would, because I'm dysregulated and that energy kind of seeps into the household, right? And at the same time, I knew that I did not have the capacity to be around his dysregulated nervous system, because my nervous system was already dysregulated enough. I was having a hard enough time dealing with and navigating that like I didn't have the ability to like hold space for him as say we do in our normal day-to-day life. And so what I did is I just retreated into my room and was by myself, and while he worked through his stuff, I was then able to do my process and come back and reintegrate, versus say like literally a day later, he was in a really completely different nervous system state, super responsive, super receptive, super supportive, just everything I needed. And I, by the way, obviously give gratitude to your safe people because they're amazing. When I say safe people, I don't just refer to like, oh, I trust this person, not that person, but also like be conscious of what's going on for them in their inner world, because even though you might be having a hard time, they could as well, and they might not have the bandwidth perhaps to be your safe person in that moment. So just be conscious of that. Number 9, be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Just softly, easy, okay? Because when we get dysregulated and we get into that sympathetic nervous system response, yes, you are dealing with the situation in the moment, and at the same time, you are also most likely dealing with some historical events, whether they have been conscious or unconscious, and perhaps even, stay with me here, some ancestral or collective experiences as well. Now, what do I mean by that? You see, our body speaks in sensation. So when you then feel that feeling, so let's say for me, as I go back into the memory bank, it was really, there was a lot of rage, a lot of anger, there was fear, there was guilt, grief. So it was a whole melting pot of emotion. And in this particular scenario, it brought back a really specific memory that hadn't been, I would say, fully processed, which is probably why this experience was so elevated in its way. And that's one piece. So you can be dealing with what's happening right now, and also like specific memories that felt similarly, but you hadn't fully processed and integrated yet. And then it's like twice the fun. This is why I always speak about like just feel your feelings, integrate, close the stress loop, because otherwise you're going to eventually have to deal with it, whether you like it or not. So that's one thing. But the other thing, which was really interesting that came over the top of it, was childhood experiences and feelings of, particularly like I've got bullied quite a lot when I was in school. And so that came up. So a lot of that pain surfaced. And on top of that, there was then also, I think, definitely ancestral stuff going on, particularly because I restarted my ancestral karma prostrations practice around that same time. And I was like, well, look at that, universe. She asks, she delivers. So for example, like a lot of the rage that I felt as I tuned into it, like, yes, there was a lot coming from this specific situation and from me. And at the same time, I could also feel the unprocessed rage of my ancestors living in my body, which if you haven't listened to the episode that I talked to on that, I'll definitely link it up below as well so that you get a chance to, because effectively we hold about 7 generations worth of experiences in our body from our ancestors. And also we have the opportunity to influence up to 7 generations ahead from us. And then lastly, there's a collective emotion and sensation as well. So quite layered, as you can see. And so that's why I'm saying be gentle, and that's why it's also so common for people to numb with whatever it is. Like for me at the time, it was like alcohol predominantly and vapes and food and TV shows. And now this time it was such a parallel because I felt it all. And my goodness, like it was such an interesting experience. And my last tip, which I think is number 10. Yes, it is number 10. Is look, if your inner child or inner teenager or whoever, whatever part of you needs to rebel, like, because let's be real, if you are dysregulated and you are feeling shaken up, there's probably a part of you that's going to want to be a little bit rebellious. Let them, but safely. So what I mean by that is, in the specific situation that I found myself with, I had to be really careful and really stay in line, so to speak. And there was definitely a need for my nervous system to have an outlet for that inner rebel. And so the way that I did that, which is like so trivial, it's so silly, but it worked, was I just let some of my non-negotiables slip, like some of my daily practices that I just didn't do. And I didn't do some of my like daily journaling, which I generally do at morning at nighttime. And maybe there were like a couple little things here and there that, like, as you can hear, like they're so trivial, they're so silly, right? But it was just like in that moment where I was like, oh, I should do this. And then I could like literally just feel my inner child go like, no, I'm not going to. It's literally what it's like. It's basically what's happening in our head. The more aware you become, the more you notice it. So yeah, just find a safe way to let out that rebellious self if it needs to come out. And so those are my, I guess this is my 10-step survival guide when the shit really hits the fan. And I, as I said, am still in it. I'm feeling it. It is very much kind of hot off the press, which is why I thought, wow, this is such a unique perspective to be able to share with someone who may need to hear it. And look, it's only been a few days, and yes, while my body right now is showing signs and symptoms of fatigue, I know this would have taken weeks, if not months, to process fully had I gone down the traditional numbing route. And so through letting myself feel this fully, through letting myself integrate this whole experience, like, yes, I had all the symptoms. My biometrics fell off a cliff. It was like literally overnight, my Oura ring was like, your body is showing major signs of strain and your heart rate is through the roof and your temperature is up and your heart rate variability, which is basically your resilience to stress, is down. Yes. And it also sped up the recovery process. So hopefully this is helpful. Know that this is just my lived experience, so you get to create your own, right? These 10 steps are just some ideas, although I would say that the first 4 I highly recommend to fully close the stress loop. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to safety. Your nervous system just wants to feel safe. So what is it that you can do to do that? And so as we wrap this week's episode, my invitation to you would be to pick the strategies that resonated with you the most and make a note of them, whether it's in a note on your phone, a sticky note, or journal, or whatever. And so that when the sparkles really do hit the fan, you have that to go back to. Even better, like, practice these practices now. Right? Because the thing is, like, most of these I actually already do in my day-to-day life. So when it came to it, they were familiar and it felt really natural as a way to process and integrate the situation. So that's like a bonus action for you. And look, if you need someone safe to co-regulate with, because I know that not everyone has this available to them, it can be hard to find a trusted person, a way shower that can really just see you for who you are and unconditionally, with no judgment, just be there and witness your experience without trying to fix it or solve it or, I don't know, give advice or whatever, but just who has the capacity to hold your emotional experience. I'm here. And you see, the reason I'm also sharing this is that I only get to guide you as far as I have gone. And so it is in my own inner work that I then develop and build capacity to hold more for you. And so it's an honor and a privilege to have walked through this experience with you. I hope that this has been helpful. I'm so grateful for you, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye for now. If you're enjoying this episode and want to stay connected beyond the podcast, I would love to invite you to join my newsletter. It is a soft little pause in your inbox, an email that you actually want to read, sharing reflections, wellness wisdom, and seasonal insights to really help you slow down and come back to yourself. You'll also be the first one to hear about new offerings, events, upcoming episodes of Resonance, and so much more. The links are right below this in the show notes. You can sign up through my website, liveandhealth.co, or by heading to any of my socials at Live and Health. The links are in my bio. It is free, it is gentle, and always created with care. The views and opinions expressed by guests on Resonance are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of me, Victoria Levenberg, Live and Health, or anyone working within the Live and Health brand. This space welcomes a diversity of ideas, experiences, and stories, and part of Resonance is learning to take what aligns and gently leaving the rest. Also, while I am a national board-certified health and wellness coach and deeply passionate about well-being, this podcast is intended for educational and inspirational purposes only. Resonance does not substitute personalized medical, psychological, or therapeutic advice. Always seek guidance from qualified professionals for any physical, emotional, or mental health concerns.